Welcome to the Timeout Coaching Podcast. Today I'm going to talk to a rising star of British coaching. He is the youngest coach to win a professional trophy, the BBL Cup in 2018, and has coached the Cheshire Phoenix BBL team for the past 3.5 seasons. Please welcome Coach Ben Thomas.
Thanks for having me, Coach. Happy to be in. I'm really excited about all these podcasts that are coming out. I'm learning a lot myself from them. So, I'm happy to be involved, and thanks for the invitation.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, like I've told you before, I've told the number of people, it's really important to get a historical perspective of the game. But more importantly, we're doing this to inspire younger coaches. And there cannot be a better story than yours, a homegrown product that goes and wins big in what is a really tough and competitive league. So let's start by, like we always do, and talk about what was your introduction to the game of basketball.
Yeah, so like most people, I think your parent or your brothers played basketball, or your sister or something like that, and no different for me. So my dad played when he was younger, played in his high school. Funnily enough, coached by Mike Burton. He was a good player, I believe. Obviously, I just got to take his word for it. He likes to say how good he was every now and again. But never really played past junior basketball. But always sort of stayed involved with the Jets being a local team for us. Like he'd always go and watch, and I think I must have been about 9 or 10, maybe a little bit earlier than that. He took me to my first game, and that's when Billy Singleton was there. I remember being stood in the corridor at the Northgate Arena as Billy Singleton walked past, just looking up at this absolute man mountain. And they were sponsored by the Twiglets as well. I remember Twiglets getting thrown into the crowd at halftime and all that sort of stuff. It was just, a great experience, and I loved basketball from there on in, really.
Yeah, that's unbelievable, and obviously such a rich tradition and history. When you're going to watch, did that that inspire you to start playing? I mean, obviously, and the fact. Talk to me just a little bit, because there's not going to be that many coaches that we talk to, British coaches I'm talking about, who had that ability to go and sit so close. I mean, I loved the Northgate Arena. I actually enjoyed playing there. I had, some really great games, but it's, you're right there. You've got to feel players, feel emotion, feel the game. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, not many people liked playing at the Northgate, and I don't think many Jets players enjoyed playing at the Northgate that much as well, if I'm honest. But as a fan, like you say, it's so small. The space between the bleachers and the court was tiny, and the atmosphere in there was unbelievable. So yeah, just being that close to them, growing up in that environment, and it is like like you say, inspiring. At the time when you're young, you're getting to meet these players after the game. You get to go and shake their hands and get an autograph, and it just lights that fire in your belly about just wanting to go back next week and then working on your game to try and be like them as well. So yeah, that was definitely like a huge inspiration early on.
So you, where did you were playing for the Jets junior teams, or what about the school situation? Because you did play for sure.
Yeah. So the Jets back then never had a junior program attached to it. It was a little bit different. So the local team then was called Ellesmere Port Panthers.
Sure.
And it was a pretty well-known program. I think it was more well-known for like the women's or the girls teams. They were very, very successful.
That was
all the leaders.
Yeah, that was Jimmy McGinn, Coach Jimmy McGinn.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like I say, he had a lot of success with those girls programs, and the local high school as well seems to be like an absolute feeding ground for basketball players. Mike Burton was the PE teacher, and there was a female PE teacher called Mrs. Lodge, and she was a netball coach or netball enthusiast, however you want to say it. But she also had like a real hunger for basketball as well, and those two together alongside the Panthers at the time, were just developing huge amounts of talent. And I don't know the exact stats, but I believe that Ellesmere Port Catholic High School is still one of the most successful high schools in school basketball, English school basketball history. The amount of titles that they won over the years. So no, it was good. like I say, I played Ellesmere Port Panthers up until I was under 16s. Before then, moving to Manchester Magic. So obviously, you know, one of the more respected National League programs. Especially then, I was going there, and they were winning everything every year, and had 2 very successful years there under 18s.
And who was your coach at the Magic? Was that Joe Forber was there, or was that
No,
Jeff, or who
no.
was
So
the coach?
Joe Forber was there and overseeing everything, but my coach was Samet, and
Okay,
Samet, yeah.
one of my
So
close good friends. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
so I mean, I still speak to Samet to this day. You know, speak to him on WhatsApp. I mean, I normally type a message. He normally speaks one back because I don't think his spelling's that great anymore since he's left the country. But no, me and Samet still do speak occasionally as well. Like he gives me some advice and things, which is good. But yeah, I was so lucky at that age. You know, I was 15 when I went to Manchester. So lucky to make the team. It was only me and one other 16. I turned 16 in August, so going into that season, there was only me and one other 16-year-old that made the under 18s team. Everyone else was the year above us. You know, and just so lucky at such a young age to be learning from such a detailed coach like Sam it was.
Sure.
Like I'd never experienced anything like it. Like the details offensively, details defensively, like how to defend certain situations and things like that was just, you know, it was amazing to be learning from him. And you know, definitely to this day I still use some of Samet's theories
Sure,
in my
sure.
coaching as well. So
Yeah.
no, it was good. And then obviously I went to Gran Canaria a year after that as well, to the academy, and Samet went that year as well. So I was really lucky to have Samet as my coach for 3 years.
Wow, wow. And
You know that
who else was at CBA at that time at Gran Canaria? Was Tim Lewis
in
there at
terms of
that time?
no. I think he was there the year before or 2 years before me.
Right.
Um, so you know, we had some coaches. Like there was a coach called Joseph Jelinek. His son plays in the ACB, and David Jelinek, his name is, and you know, just some really good players that were, you know, who had turned into coaches. And it was good just to get all this information from all these coaches that had played in all these leagues, and you know, not just that, playing against some really good players who have gone on to do some really good things as well. So, you know, that was a great experience for me.
Great. And then from the Gran Canaria Academy, what happened from there?
So after that, I actually went to Leeds. They were just Leeds Carnegie at the time. So Matt Newby was coaching. I was originally going to Worcester, and I was going to go and you know, go to university there and probably get involved in the books programs and whatever. But when I actually went to visit Worcester, it was just a little bit too familiar for me. It's very much like Chester. You know, it's the same sort of style city. And I thought, if I'm going to move away, like I'd like to experience like a different, you know, situation, a different way of life,
Oh,
sort of thing. So it was actually Samet that helped me get a conversation with Matt Newby.
absolutely. Yeah.
And Matt helped, you know, make a transfer happen really late on in the year. And you know, it's when they were playing Division 1, so I was playing with the Division 1 team, I was playing with the Division 3 team, just floating in between the two teams. And yeah, again, it was another good experience. But I didn't finish my degree. I'd done a year, and you know, just it wasn't for me. I just, that year out from studying and being away from education, I think, you know, it just didn't help. I just couldn't get back into it. I couldn't get into the swings of things, and I didn't want to waste
Sure.
my time being there.
But still, you know, being involved with Matt, you know, Summit, these are, you know, Gran Canaria. This is an incredible, and plus your homegrown situation. I mean, that's a really interesting group of coaches, you know, to take a lot of just a little bit here and a little bit there. That's great stuff. Great stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like you say, it's just about taking things from each person. Do you know what I mean? And you know, there's definitely been a lot of people along the way, like you say, Samet, Matt Newby, Mike Burton. But I'd say Mike Burton, I took more from him once I became a coach, because obviously school basketball at that age, you know, up until the under 16s, he retired when I was in year 11. So when I started really taking it seriously and the details and things like that, you know, that's when I got it from Matt. But obviously, learned so much from
Sure.
Mike as well once I'd became the
So
coach.
what was your first kind of coaching stop, and or were you all of this time, were you seeing these coaches in action and saying, actually, I think I can get involved with that? What was that process?
I think from like I've always been quite mature for my age in terms of like leading and quite outspoken and things like that. I think that's always been noticed as well. I was the captain in my school team, and I'd organised the team. I remember Mike Burton one time saying, "Ben, I need you to go and speak to this player because he needs to come to training and all this." So, he was giving me instruction even when I was 14, 15, trying to get players into training and things. So, captain there. I was the captain of the Manchester Magic under-18s team as well for Samet. So I was always sort of that extension of the coach. I wasn't the best player ever. No, not going to start making lies and saying I was a superstar or anything like that. But I was quite smart, and that was from early on, like you say. But my first actual coaching stop was once I finished in Leeds, and I came home and I was getting into the working life. I was bouncing around a couple of jobs before I started, finding a career that I wanted to go down. I still wanted to be involved in basketball, whether that was playing or coaching, but there was just no men's team locally for me to play for. I could have travelled to Liverpool, but it was just meaning, quite a while to get over there and all that sort of thing. So this is when the Cheshire juniors were around. So the junior program for the pro team. So I went and spoke to Mike Burton, who was the head coach of the whole junior program, and I said to him, look, I'd love to be getting involved. I feel like I've got a lot to give. I think that I have played at this level quite recently. I think I was only 21 at the time. So I wanted to take the under-18s team. I thought, that was where I'd be best suited, where I'd had experience and won at that level. So, I was lucky enough for Mike to give me that opportunity to start coaching under-18 straight away.
Right, that's fantastic. And so this was just obviously a voluntary situation, or how many times a week, and how was it progressing? How did it move along?
So yeah, completely voluntary. We trained twice a week. It was Monday and Wednesday for an hour and a half or 2 hours. I can't remember the exact times. And then games at weekends. But my uncle was coaching one of the junior pro teams at the time, so I'd always go to his sessions as well. So I'd be doing more than 2 sessions. I'd go and help out with the girls program as well. My uncle done a girls team one time, so I'd always be like around the teams and just trying to give advice and learn, and just do different drills that I thought was good, and just trying to do as much as possible at that time, all the time as well. I'd be with the pro team, the Phoenix at the time, in training. So John Lavery was coaching at that time, and I'd done it when John Cafino was here. Colin O'Reilly, I'd done a couple of his sessions as well. So I was always around training with the pro team and just being one of the training players, because obviously the roster's always been quite small here.
Right, that's great. And so were you starting to get something in the back of your mind that, hey, this is what I wanted to do? Maybe not even from that professional standpoint, but maybe you're just saying, I'm definitely gonna start community coaching, and I'm gonna, or was this just, this was just a love, a passion?
Yeah, honestly, hand on heart, like I never expected to get any money from basketball. Like when I first started coaching the under-18s, it was just a case of me wanting to give back. I didn't expect anything in exchange for that. I thought that, there was a lot of coaches that came before me that had done it for me as well, that coached for free, and I just wanted to do that. And like I say, it was John Lavery, the first person that when I was training with him, like he actually asked me, he said, "Do you want to come to the games? Do you want to come along to the games, sit on the bench, just be an extra set of eyes and ears on the bench for me, and just help me out a little bit?" And again, there was no financial reward for that. I was just so keen to give back and help as much and in any way that I could.
Yeah. That's a common story, and what I'm interested about is the fact that this is your hometown club, and you've gone through this process, not quite directly through, like you said, you went to Manchester and you went to Gran Canaria, but you're still, this is your this is your area. This is, you have a lot of, passion and feeling for that area. And that happens to me where I see this more is obviously in Europe and some other parts of the world where there's a more natural kind of path through as a junior player, senior player, and then into coaching. And I think that's so missing in our country. So I'm really, happy that that's some, kind of some of the process that you've been through.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you were the assistant coach or kind of assistant coach to John now, are you starting to get some thoughts in your mind about how to coach the game? Are you giving him some things that you think you could put in? Just talk to me a little bit about, some of your early experiences there.
Just little things, honestly. It was never big things at this point. So I remember quite clearly in my head just one session that I can sort of expand on. So he was putting a 2-3 zone in. It was quite early in the year, and we were just talking about positioning. And Samet had ran a 2-3 zone with me for the whole 3 years that I was under him. And the way Samet had always taught us just a little bit about positioning on the weak side. So how you should be looking at the ball, body positioning, that sort of thing. And, I just sort of started getting into that. So when John was putting the zone in, I would sort of just offer my input and things like that. But it would never be, I'd come to him and say, right, I think you should start doing this and doing that. It was literally just little points early on.
Sure.
Watching how he, planned his training sessions, what sort of drills we done. The big one for me is like watching how each coach that I've been around with the pro team is how they manage the players as well, how they talk to the players was a huge thing. How they address the whole group, how they address individuals and things like that. So yeah, that was a huge thing for me at that point, learning each one of their sort of tendencies and how they do that.
That's great stuff. Really, really good stuff. I mean, and like I said, you've got these experiences. So now it's starting to come to this, incredible situation. I mean, talk to me about this time where you did get, put into the position to be a head coach, regardless of experience or anything. So that must have been a daunting and an incredible situation at the same time.
Yeah, it was a strange one. Obviously, the club made a couple of changes in the 2016-2017 season. They brought in a new head coach, Colin O'Reilly, who had been a player here previously, very good player. Had some good success. Never really won anything, but he was a good player, and we expected a lot from him as a club. When he came in, he done things very differently. He had the players wearing heart monitors. He was making sure they were working hard all the time and things like that, which was something that I'd never seen before. And that was something that he provided. He had it on his iPad, and he'd have the players wearing the little vests every training session. But the one thing about him is that he said when he came in that he didn't really want an assistant coach who wasn't going to be there full time. And obviously the club never had the money to sort of put someone there full time. So I completely get where he's coming from, because to have an assistant coach and to trust them, you do have to have them there day in, day out with the players so that the players trust them as well. Obviously, his time here wasn't very successful, and the club ended up making some changes just before Christmas. So obviously they brought a new coach in, who was Robbie Pearce, who had a lot of success here in like the early 2000s.
Don't I know? He stopped me winning 3 trophies, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, he had a lot of success here, and we just hoped that he was going to be sort of a turning point in the team, because the community programs were getting so much better off the court, was getting so much better within the club, and we just needed that success on the court. But there was a 2 or 3 week gap from when Colin left and Robbie could start, because he had a lot of business down in London. Like he ran a couple of different businesses, coaching in schools and things like that. So in those 2 or 3 weeks, we had 2 games. We had one against Sheffield in Sheffield, and we had one in Glasgow. And the Sheffield game was actually coached by James Bryce, and I assisted him. James Bryce is our general manager, who also coaches with our junior program. So James took over that one. And then the game in Glasgow, I think it was on just after Christmas, like maybe even Boxing Night or something like that. It was in between Christmas and New Year, I think. And James was with the junior team in a trip to Germany, so Mike had to coach that one. And Mike asked me if I wanted to go and be an assistant coach because he hadn't been around the team that much, and I'd been training with them, so I knew the plays and I could help him. And that's what happened. So Mike took over the game. You know, it was crazy. I think we won on the buzzer in the end, and you know, it was on BBC. Glasgow had filled their 6,000 seat arena. You know, the running hall, the athletics hall.
Yeah.
And we weren't expected to win. We went there, you know, and we won. And you know, after the game, Bert turned around to me and said, "Ben, honestly, you really, really impressed me there. Like, you said some really good things." And I was only telling him what I thought, but he acted on it. So, you know, as a head coach, you do listen to your assistants, and sometimes you ignore what they say. Sometimes you take on board what they say. And luckily for me, he took on board what I said, and it worked. So, you know, he was really impressed then. And when Robbie Pearce came in, I think Mike had spoken to Robbie about having me on board and just being there and helping him, and that's how it happened. So then I was reinstated as like a proper assistant coach now. Like, I had the title and everything, and you know, the proper t-shirt, and you know, it was good. Again, learning from Robbie the way he spoke to them. I think that's the biggest thing that I took from Robbie is, you know, how he spoke to the players. Like, he was always like, "You will make this shot." He was always very positive with them.
Super positive.
You know, it was just like some of the terminology that you heard him say was really, really good. And you know, we'd never be like, if we miss this shot, we'd always be like, "You're going to make this shot on this play," and it was really good. But then obviously Robbie had to. Sorry, go on.
I just want to just put just one little just splice in here and just say that this story that you've just talked about will get verified by Mike Burton next week when we run that podcast, because Mike's actually told me that story almost verbatim to what you talked. And so I'm really, really excited about that, and happy, because that's exactly how he described that situation. So
it's
great. That's
good.
Great stuff.
We do talk about it quite often. Like, you know, it is crazy how I got the opportunity, and it's literally just from me giving Mike some advice in that game, and he did listen to it. And you know, I could have gave him the same advice, and it might not have worked, and we might not be here right now. But it did work, and it's luck sometimes.
You need a little bit of luck. So you went then the Robbie situation. Yeah, some things happened there, and
so Robbie unfortunately had to leave. Just some personal matters off the court. You know, we had to go and take care of some things back down in London and things like that. His business had to come first, and his personal life had to come first. So we're now March the 2nd. I still remember it to the day. I was in work. I was working on a building site, and Mike Burton rings me. He goes, "Ben, we were playing Leicester." Honestly, this is a Thursday night, and we were playing Leicester the next day. And Bert rings me, goes, "Ben, Robbie can't make the game tomorrow. I will coach if you want me to, but what I really want to happen is I want you to step up and be the head coach. What do you think?" And I think I took probably 5 seconds just to, you know, take it in. I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." I said, "I'll do it." So I took over for that weekend. I think we played Leicester in a back-to-back game. I can't remember what it was. It might have been like the semi-final in the trophy or second leg of the trophy or something like that. Lost both games, but after the weekend, the news obviously then trickled down that Robbie was going to be unavailable for the rest of the season. And Mike said, "Listen, I want you to take over for the rest of the year. You know, I believe in you. I think you can do a great job." So I spoke to work about letting me go part-time for the rest of the season, and then I'd go full-time again after April or May. They let me do that, and I just took the rest of the season. And in those 11 games that I took over, I'd won more games than Robbie and Colin in that whole season.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And so you obviously knew the players. Did you change much there, like tactically, or was it just pure motivation? You know, what do you think was the key to you winning games versus, you know, say Robbie and Colin that season?
I think there's obviously aspects of luck involved. Like, you know, I can't take full credit for it, but one of the things is that we made a change that year as well at the point guard position. We brought a guard called Mike Donuno back that was there a couple of seasons ago with John Cafino. And I was a training player when Cofino was the coach. And I'd seen how good Mike Donuno was. He left, he injured his back that year. But then when he came back, I spoke to Mike and just got the best out of him, really. And he absolutely had an unbelievable 11 games under me. And, I sort of gave him that little bit of freedom that a player like that needs sometimes to go and do well and express himself on the court. And along with other players like Earl Brown Jr., who went up to Glasgow, and Jamel Anderson was there, Raheem May Thompson was there. We had some really good talent. Dijon, Alan Jordan, who came back here a year later after a break from playing. And we just played with a lot of freedom, transition basketball, very sort of simple offenses with a quick first phase, then getting into a pick and roll situation because we had such a good ball handler that, I just wanted to have a quick phase of offense, move the defense a little bit, and then get into them sort of situations where we could make it count. And, we did, and, we had some success doing that.
That's great. And so from there, that summer, obviously the club, showed a faith in you and say, we want you to be our new head coach. Firstly, how did that make you feel? And then secondly, what did that then mean to you? And how did you go about being a full-time BBL head coach?
Okay, so this is a little bit of a strange one as well. So, obviously, I'd had 11 games experience as a professional coach. I wasn't getting paid at that point. I was literally just doing it as a volunteer, working part-time. And Bert just said to me, I met with Bert in the summer. He said, do you want to do it along with the other directors of the club? I said, yeah, I do want to do it. And he said, well, look, we are taking a little bit of a gamble. Like, we can't really offer you much. It's either we put the money into a coach or we put the money into the team, into the playing budget, which at that point was pretty small anyway. So I took a whole year working part-time. I worked 27 and a half hours a week and didn't get paid for my first full season as a coach, just done it. I had a company that I worked for before coaching, and he was just very understandable. He fit my hours around training. So Mondays I'd work full time because we were always off on a Monday. Tuesday I'd start 15 minutes later to go get a morning session in with the players, and then I'd leave at 3 o'clock for training in the afternoon. And my boss just fitted my days around my practice really, really good. Right. And yeah, just so lucky to have that opportunity at such a young age, because I'm 25, 26 at this point. And, I just sort of thought to myself, if I say no to this opportunity and I let them take another coach on, will I ever get another opportunity to be the head coach ever again of a team? And I just thought that that was an opportunity that I couldn't say no to.
That's a great soundbite, coach, and I'm actually going to pull that out there because really important for young coaches to hear that. I will say that even from my perspective, I made a classic mistake when I was after Birmingham Bullets, where I was offered the Antwerp job in Belgium, and I didn't think I was fully ready for it, and I turned it down instead of taking it and just running with it and making the best of that situation. So definite regret in my coaching career. So I'm full of admiration that you did that and you said, look, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it. So just talk to me about how you went into that season. You're by far the youngest coach in the BBL at that stage, younger than, well, not all of your players, but some of the players. What were you, first of all, how did you approach that? And then secondly, what about your philosophy? Did you start to, do some things that you really were passionate about defensively, offensively? What were you looking to do there?
So I'll just start with obviously like the point of like actually going into the summer. I think that I was fully aware that I wasn't going to be the oldest coach with the most experience. So I wanted to make sure that we had some experience in the team. And, the Jets of old, like you played against guys that, they recruited from within the league. So like James Hamilton's and things like that done well elsewhere, then came to the Jets and had, you know, a lot of success as well. So that's sort of what the approach that I took straight away, is that I want to get guys who are experienced within the league, know how it works, so that, you know, we're not bringing 8 new rookies into a team with a rookie coach, that, you know, we are going to have that lack of experience. So you know, our 2 Americans that we recruited that year from within the BBL were Malcolm Riley, who played at Sheffield, and we recruited a guy called Robert Sandoval, who played at Leeds. Brought Raheem May Thompson back, who'd been with us for a year at that point. We brought Orlan Jackman in from Newcastle, who at that point had some success with the Eagles, and, you know, we saw that as, you know, good experience. And then you know, brought a couple of rookies in then around them, and, you know, we just had, you know, a pretty good season. Obviously, got the BBL Cup win, which was amazing, but missed out on the playoffs, which really hurt as well. So, yeah, but that was the way I approached it anyway. So I've just gone off on a little bit of a tangent there.
No. I mean, you did an incredible job. Obviously, I was there at Glasgow at the start. Matter of fact, I think you beat us in the cup. Am I not mistaken in saying that? You beat me in the cup. Well, you
I think so.
certainly I was 1-1. You know, we won one real close, and then you beat us on that crazy. I don't even know if it was overtime or it was certainly in the last seconds. Anyway,
I think was it Nate Britt that got the layup, and Orlan Jackman took it off the ring once the buzzer had gone, or something like that. No, we had some great success. Obviously, we took a big gamble on CJ Gettys that year as well. You know, bringing a traditional big back into the league. That, you know, the BBL hadn't seen a traditional big like that for a long time, and, you know, me being old school in terms of the way of thinking and how the Jets were back in the day, they'd always had a real good big guy, whether that was, you know, Billy Singleton, Lauren Meyer, Piero Cameron. You know, there was always some real big guy underneath the basket being able to, you know, do a lot of damage inside on both ends of the floor. So, you know, yeah, we had some great talent. And, you know, when I first started coaching, you know, one of my goals myself was I wanted to be every other coach, you know, and that was like my target. You know, I didn't really say I want to finish top of the league. Just as a coach, I just wanted to make sure that I was good enough to be at this level. And, you know, luckily I have beat every coach in the league. I think it took me a year to beat. It took me a year to beat Rob Panostro, but I did.
I mean, you know, listen, that's great stuff, because that reminds me a little bit about myself. You know, when I went to Newcastle, I was the youngest coach in the league by a long way. I was 29 years old, or 30 years old at that stage when Paul took me, and I was, you know, I'd had a lot of experience in other places, but not, you know, I really. You know, he took a gamble on me, because at that time, you know, there were, well, we know the world-class coaches that were in that league at that time. And you're absolutely right. You know, I was like saying to myself, you know, I want to beat Chris Finch. I want to beat Nick Nurse. I want to beat Billy Mims. Yeah. And I was going up against those guys. That's a great, you know, you have to have a competitive element in there. And that's fantastic. So how are you setting the team up that year? You know, from a tactical perspective, what are you looking to do? You know, you've got CJ, you know, like you say, as an inside player. Are you kind of 4 out, 1 in? What was your philosophy there, and how were you looking to play?
Yeah, so that year, obviously, our starting 5 was Malcolm Riley, Rob Sandoval, Orlan Jackman, Raheem May Thompson, CJ Gettys inside. So Orlan and Raheem are both, you know, hybrid forwards, 3-4-4-3 type players. So those guys were sort of interchangeable, but we'd also always have CJ inside when he was on the floor. So yeah, I was always keen on shooting. You know, when I was a player, you know, that's the position I played, shooting guard. So, you know, we'd always set up to have, you know, a lot of shooters. Raheem had a great season that year. I think he averaged over 40%. Malcolm Riley and Robert Sandoval were high 30s from 3-point line. So we just had a great inside-outside game. Ball goes into CJ, defense collapses, and then we'd always have some sort of action on the weak side to get somebody free. So yeah, that was how I'd sort of set up the offenses, you know, just to make sure that the ball had the opportunity to go in and to come out at the same time, because we had such a big guy around the basket who, you know, he has unbelievable hands, CJ. Like, you know, around the basket, in terms of a scorer, you know, I don't think the league's seen a big guy like that for a very, very long time, and I don't know if we will in the near future.
Yeah, and obviously he was like super heavy at that stage as well, and that was
Yeah.
probably as a surprising, not just high touch, skill, but he was so heavy. It was almost like when he posted deep, it was over. It was really
Yeah.
over. And
Yeah.
I used to say to a number of coaches around the league, listen, he might not look in shape, but he is in shape somehow, some way. It's that fake kind of, like as other, fans and coaches are just laughing because they're saying he's overweight. But he was a warrior then. He really was.
In that sense, he was very much like Billy Singleton, like back in the day. Like you'd look at Billy and say, how is this guy going to play 30, 40 minutes a game? But yet he done it night in, night out, and was one of the most effective forwards in the league because he knew how to use his body. And at that point, CJ knew how to use his body as well. He'd get position, and there was no moving him around. He, like you say, he was heavy. I think he was like 280, 290 pounds at that time. And when he's that close to the basket, he was more or less unstoppable. And unless the defense really helped, and then we'd be wide open on the perimeter. So yeah, it was an interesting year. It was good. Learned a lot.
And so, you come to play the BBL Cup. You're in the semifinals. You lose the first leg by 13 points. What are you telling your team, and what are you saying? That's a really tough amount of points to overcome. And what did you say straight after the game? What were you saying leading up to the second game, and how did you pull off this incredible win?
Well, it was funny. Like that whole series getting to that final was crazy, because go back a game to the quarterfinals, we were playing Newcastle Eagles, and in Newcastle, and we were down 3. We were down 3 with, I want to say, 10 seconds to go. I mean, you could probably get the clip up somewhere.
I got the clip. I got the clip in my mind. I remember it like crystal clear, because it was almost impossible for Newcastle to lose that game. And
it was crazy because
Fab, if I'm not mistaken, Fab only has to throw it in the corner and the game's over. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. We went to the line for 2 shots, and CJ came up to me and said to me, just before he was going to shoot, he was the one that shooting. He goes, Ben, should have missed the second shot on purpose, because if he'd scored, they'd have advanced the ball and we'd have had no chance to win. I said to him, yeah, tell Raheem and Orlan to go in for the rebounds, and if you've got to miss the second shot, miss the second shot. We'll go for the offensive rebound and tip it back out. No word of a lie, CJ Getty shot that second free throw with his eyes closed, and he made it. I couldn't believe it. He ran down the court saying I had my eyes closed and everything. Fab calls a timeout, advanced the ball. And I said to them, okay, we've got one chance here, and it's to stop the ball coming in. That's the only way we're going to get another chance at this game. So I put Orlan because Orlan has a great wingspan. I put him on the inbound pass. I put CJ on help side so they couldn't do any lobs over the top. I had Raheem marking the corner, and I had Rob Sandoval taking anyone that came out the top of the key. And the first pass was Fab passed it to his right to Defoe, and Raheem got there late into the passing lane and hit it back out of bounds. So hardly any time got taken off the clock, and they advanced the ball a little bit further. At this point now, it was hard to pass to the corner because it was getting a little bit closer and the gap was a little bit smaller. And I remember it to the day, he bounced past it, I'm sure, to the top, and Rob Sandoval was so quick, got his hand to it, took a couple of dribbles, Orlan ran down the court, and we got a layup and won on the buzzer. It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And then obviously, going on to lose the first leg of the semi-finals was obviously disappointing against London. They had a great team that year. They had some really good players. And like you say, after the game, I was really positive. Like no one else, and I'm honestly sure that if you asked anyone around the club, they'd have said they didn't see how we'd win it. But I don't know. I just had a really good feeling. When you just, as a coach, you have those times where you feel really good about something. And, I was positive that we were going to get something from the game. So I said to the players that this score can level up within one quarter. If we have 2 or 3 good runs within a quarter, we can be going in to the second quarter 4 points down. And you wouldn't believe it, but in the first 4 minutes, we'd leveled the game up going in. And it was just a case of then for the 35, 36 minutes that was left, just to manage the game. And we just had an unbelievable game. A lot of luck. London missed some wide open 3-pointers and things like that. But we just put them on the back foot from the very start, and just managed to see the game out. And unbelievable. Dan Routledge tweeted this, I'm sure. No team had ever turned around such a deficit away from home in the second leg before,
No.
and I think that's still the biggest to the day. So
I overturned Newcastle by 9, I think it was, in Newcastle, but never that. I mean, psychologically, that's a tough figure. It's an incredible win, coach. So now you go to the final. What are you starting to believe? Are you starting to believe you're the team of destiny? Is that something was that a rallying call, or did you kind of temper that? How did you feel about that?
Again, I honestly believe if you asked everyone in the club, they would have said after the event, obviously before the club, they were always positive, and they were saying the right things to me, the directors, James, the general manager, and the players. I only think the people that believed that we could win was me and the 8 or 9 guys that we had, and I couldn't see how Worcester were going to beat us. You might call me stupid, Mike. I had the blinkers on. I just did not know how they were going to beat us that game. I thought, player for player, we sort of had them matched up pretty well. They had Baczynski, a big 7-footer. We had Gettys. They had 2 long wing players, Palmer and Parrish. We had Raheem and Orlan. I just didn't see it. I could not see how they were going to beat us. And the club done some really, really good things. James, the general manager, had this video message set up. So the night before, we went down to Birmingham, and we went for a team meal. And when we got back to the hotel, James had emailed and spoken to all the players, families, girlfriends, parents back home. Awesome. And actually had a message put up on, and we've shown this video in one of the meeting rooms at the hotel the night before the game. We just sort of said, they can't be here in person, but they have got a message, and we played that in front of everyone. And I think, we were all just so together for that game and ready to go. The atmosphere was really good, and like I said, I just didn't see how we were going to lose. I mean, I watched the game back this summer actually during lockdown, and it was the worst start to any game. I think we were 16-5 down within the first quarter, and we still ended up winning by 12 points, I think it was. So, yeah, some things are just meant to be, and I just couldn't see us losing that one.
Oh, that's awesome. That's an incredible. So now you go into these like second and third seasons. Are you? Talk to me about what a typical week is minus COVID. Talk to me about your normal kind of coaching week, and how you're preparing for a game. I think you normally play Sundays. Am I right in saying?
Yeah.
Normally a Sunday home game. So talk to me about how that would be. Mondays off, and then
yeah. So Monday's off. This year is obviously very difficult. I think every team will have, difference in schedules from the last few years. So last year, Mondays were off. Tuesday morning was S&C. We had a great facility last year just outside of Chester. 2 really good strength and conditioning coaches. So we'd go there as a whole team on the Tuesday morning, do an hour and 30 minutes with the coaches. And then Tuesday afternoon we'd train. Sometimes we'd watch film on a Tuesday, but most of the time we'd watch film on a Wednesday. Just because the way we had our venue set up at the time, we would train at our arena on a Tuesday, and that session to me was all about us, not focusing on the opposition, not focusing on some of the mistakes that we made. It was always just about us. Can we get a good scrimmage together? Can we start the week off well? And high spirits, good work ethic, that sort of thing. So Tuesday was sort of our day to have like a real scrimmage, just us against us, not really putting too much detail into the other team at that point. Wednesday, then we'd watch film before training, and then we'd scrimmage again on Wednesday, but we'd start putting like a scout team in. So we'd have 1-5 running their plays and 1-5 defending how we're going to defend certain actions and things like that. And then depending on the schedule, if we had a game on the Friday, we wouldn't scrimmage on the Thursday. It'd just be something like shooting, walkthroughs, that sort of thing. If we had a game on Saturday or Sunday, sometimes we'd scrimmage on a Thursday. But again, our club's always had a small roster, so we've got to balance,
Sure.
scrimmaging,
Absolutely.
risk injury, pushing the guys a little bit too much. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday would normally start be winding down individual workouts, some team shooting drills and, walkthroughs going through the plays, but not really going 5-on-5. Just like I say, I think in an ideal world, we would play 5-on-5 more, but we just don't have the personnel, the numbers to be doing that day in, day out, and knowing that we're going to have guys fresh for the weekend. So yeah, that's a normal week for us.
And are you your typical like practice structure? Are you want to try to get into these kind of game like situations in a 5-on-5 situation, or are you breaking stuff down in drills, or what's your kind of philosophy with regards to that?
Certain things take drills. So like pick and roll defense would always start off as a drill. So just the guard and the big man, how we're going to defend it. Then we'd start adding, maybe go to 4-on-4 there to 5-on-5, where we're going to help from in those situations, depending if we're hard hedging, whether we're just flattening the pick and staying in the lane, or icing. So we'd build certain things up like that. I've got a drill that I do, like a 3-on-3 closeout drill, where the defense is at a disadvantage.
Nice.
Just to make sure that we're closing out the way we want to close out every single time. And when you're playing 3-on-3 like that, it's tough because there's always an advantage for the offense, and it's easy to get some scores sometimes, but it's about making the defense work. So yeah, it's different. Sometimes we do drills and sometimes we play. I don't think there's a substitute for playing sometimes though, and getting up and down and getting that competitive edge going as well.
How do you think from those first, those last games of that first season to now, you going into what's, kind of your fourth season, how do you think your philosophy's changed, and how are you changing it? Are you changing, your mindset? Oh, I'm going to start defending this way, or I've got this idea to attack, from an offensive standpoint, or are you still, got a core set of principles that you think, hey, I'm going to stick to this?
I definitely have a core set of principles that I've used all along in terms of defense, where we want to help from, where we want to force guys, that sort of thing, how we want to defend pick and rolls, making sure that we're a help defense. And it hurts us sometimes. We help a little bit too much sometimes, and give guys shots in the perimeter. But I've always been under the impression that if we're going to get beat, let's get beat with the teams taking contested threes rather than get beat inside. So,
Well, in the BBL, that's a good philosophy. Trust me. Protect the paint is a great, because we don't have that many great shooters in the BBL. That's probably one of the biggest weaknesses. But yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Like I say, some of the things remain the same. In terms of like the way I approach things now, it's a little bit different. Over the last couple of years, I'm getting used to watching film a lot more, and I think that as the years go on, like I am getting better at doing film, making sure that it's engaging at the same time as informative, because, when I first started, I had no idea. I hadn't really been an assistant coach and been like a video editor or worked around guys. So literally we'd sit there in the film room and literally just watch the game, like start to finish sometimes. And I'd be talking through it, and the players just aren't taking it in after the first 5 minutes of watching the game, and you're stopping it and starting it. It's not engaging. So, I've started using Synergy a lot more, which is a great tool. And just trying to show good things and bad things, and approach the games and approach the oppositions a little bit more organized. I think that's one thing that I am getting better at, is like my organization before a game, getting the guys prepared, because that's so tough now to sort of get an edge on the opposition.
Definitely. I mean, now there's so much video, it's almost impossible to not know what the opposing team's doing or tendencies. And obviously you can now see so much. Once upon a time we were watching one game a week from the week before, and you never know, that might have just been a bad week, or they may have only ran a set for like 3 times. Now you can see 6 games behind, and you've got 10, you can really know, hey, they're definitely going to run this stuff, in this game. So
like you say, I mean, that's normally how I'd approach it as well. I'd watch Synergy. I'd get overall half court offense from a team, let's say the Leicester Riders, and I'd on a pen and paper. I'm quite old school. Like, you know, I make a lot of notes on just a pad, and I'd have their offenses drawn out, and I'd tally up which offense they're using the most, because we can't learn all 5,
No.
6, 7, 8 offenses of a team. So over these last few games, which offense are they using the most, and what offense are they scoring from? And normally I try and focus it to 2 or 3 offenses, and that's what we'd try and focus on. And just, you know, it's so difficult. We live in a time now where, you know, it's just so hard to get an advantage. And, you know, I do have a few little tricks up my sleeve when you're playing against teams that are really well prepared as well. Obviously, you might not say them on here.
No. It's good stuff. Great stuff, Coach. Two quick questions, and then we're going to move on to some different subjects. First, what's your approach then to recruiting? You've done a great job. You've brought in some really, really high level players. You know, what's your philosophy on that? You know, obviously I had Rob Pat on a couple of weeks ago, and you heard what he said there. And so what are you looking for in a player? Are you looking for his talent? Are you looking for character? What types of things are you looking for when you recruit a player?
Okay, so this is from Mike Burton, and obviously Mike's been around a long time, and, you know, he says to me all the time, the numbers don't lie. Like, you've got to find guys that get it done consistently, whether that's through a year at college, 2 years at college, 4 years at college, whatever it is, years pro. Like, their stats have to be good, and I think that's where I sort of base it first on. Like, you know, you get sent all these profiles, and I'll have a look at the stats. And if the stats are interesting, depending on how many minutes they play, I always look at how many minutes they play as well. If they play 36 minutes and they average 12 points, well, that's not as impressive as somebody who's playing 18 minutes and scoring 8 points as well. So, you know, we look at all the stats, and then the conferences, where they've played, the competition that they've played against. And if those two things add up, then I'll take it to the next step. I'll talk, you know, start looking at video, get them on synergy, look at the good points, look at the bad points. If that's interesting, then it's time to start speaking to their coaches. You know, normally get, you know, on the phone with coaches and ask them, you know, some questions. I think it was Rob actually that mentioned this. One of my questions that I ask every coach is, how durable is the player? And every time I ask the coach that question, you know, that's when you start finding out if the player misses training, whether they train through little injuries, and, you know, if they're not feeling 100%, do they have to sit out? Because we just can't have guys like that. We need, you know, people that are ready to go to war for. You know, you need people that are going to be ready to go to war for you. And, you know, there's certain questions that we ask, and we want to hear certain things. So, yeah, that's how it goes for me. It's stats first. You know, make sure that they are proven that they can play, because, like I say, numbers don't lie. Where they've played, who they've played against, what sort of level competition it is, then start watching video, and then obviously get the references about the personality and, you know, the character and things like that.
And are you recruiting? How are you recruiting your teams at this moment? Are you know, like, you're looking for a traditional point guard, a big, and then, you know, like length on the wings, or you want a shooter, you want a hybrid player, you know, forward? What
Yeah.
Just real quickly, what are you looking for there?
I think it's changed. Like, over the 4 years, my recruitment has changed, definitely. The first year we had a true point guard and a true big. Filled it with, like I say, you know, Raheem, May Thompson, Orlan Jackman, Malcolm Riley, who were all sort of hybrid players, interchangeable. Malcolm was only 6'5", but could play the 4 if he had to. You know, so that was my first year. The second year was a little bit different. We went for a combo guard, and then you know, really athletic forwards and wings. A couple of things happened, and we ended up bringing CJ back, and, you know, that was good for us again. So going into my third year, after having a combo guard for 1 year and having a true point guard for 1 year, I'd made my mind up that you need a true point guard. You know, somebody who can run the team, that extension of the coach, organise the team, and, you know, that's what we had last year with Parker, and, you know, we've got another great point guard this year with a guy called Karan Ross. He's doing a really good job for us in training and in a couple of games so far. I mean, he had a tough time against Leicester, but he had a great game against Bristol. So yeah, definitely true point guard for me. I like to have, you know, a big body, but one of the sort of things that I learned having CJ here is that, you know, you need to be athletic in this league as well at that position. And I think, however good CJ was offensively for us, like, you know, the way we were playing defense might not have suited him, and his defensive sort of style didn't suit us. So the last couple of years, I've had more athletic forwards, and you know that's probably going to suit me a little bit better moving forward as well. So yeah, true point guard, but then I'm more or less open to the other positions, being a little bit more, like you say, hybrid and interchangeable.
Okay, one quick question. You talked about being an inexperienced assistant coach and someone that didn't have a huge amount, especially of experience at the professional level. What are you doing now about assistant coaches, and what's your thought process with regards to that?
So again, obviously, we're a club that doesn't have the budget and the facilities to offer a full-time assistant coach. So for my first 2 years, obviously Mike was heavily involved, Mike Burton was heavily involved, and that was great to lean on, especially in those early years. You know, if I'd had a bad day, a bad training session, or things weren't going well, whilst the players were shooting, he'd be telling me, this happens to everyone. You just got to ride these times out sometimes, and you know, bus journeys when we're going to games or away from games, and he's given me all this advice. He's got some great stories that I'm sure we'll probably hear on his, or we would have heard on his podcast by the time mine comes out. That was great. That was invaluable. And then the last couple of years, lucky enough to have some really close friends in basketball who live around the area. And last couple of years, we've had a guy called Richard McNutt, who was a local player again from Asmere Port, played for Mike Burton in school, went out to college in America, and then bounced around a couple of leagues in Europe, played a short spell at Sheffield as well. He was great to have around the team. That sort of bridge between coaches and players, definitely was able to bridge that gap. I had my uncle involved last year as well. That was great, just an older head sometimes give me a little bit of advice in the ear when games aren't going well, games are going well. And this year, actually, changes have happened again. So I've got an old teammate from Manchester, a guy called Josh Horton, who, same age as me, wants to get involved in basketball, and real high IQ player, and he's going to help me this year. So yeah, we rely on people giving up a lot of the time, but it's a great opportunity for those guys to be involved as well. But yeah, that's how the assistant coaches have happened here.
Great. Changing completely tack now. Talk to me a little bit about, like I said, you've been exposed to some really, really high level, coaches, legends of our game. So you got great ground in there. But talk to me about, the coaching, the British coaching fraternity, how you see coaching in this country, maybe thoughts on, what you think should be done or hasn't been done, or what has helped you, just talk to me a little bit about the British basketball coaching.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that I'm quite unique in the way that I got to the position I am. A lot of guys, a lot of coaches at high level have coached in academies under other head coaches, and been at all these coaching camps and clinics and things like that, and shared advice. Listening to all the conversations that you've had, like people lean on different coaches in different areas, and I've got a theory, and it might be completely wrong, but people like yourselves, and I was listening to the episode that you done with Mark Dunning a couple of weeks ago. When you guys were coming up and being coaches and learning the game, there was no internet, there was no synergy, there was no YouTube videos of coaches just sharing it, and the access wasn't there for you guys. So if you wanted to go and learn how a coach done something, or learn new plays, new drills, like, you had to go and see them. Whereas now, like, we live in a world where it's a little bit more unsociable. Like, we can get all that at the touch of a button, and I feel like I don't like it. I would prefer it to be the old way. And like, I love the stories that Bert tells me about him working with all these coaches that he's worked with, and I'd love to be in that position and learning from people in person. But the truth is that we have it easy. Like, we don't need to rely on those and having those friendships to get the information out of people. You know, I could be friends with you and say, Tony, I need you to send me a few drills, or I need you to show me this offense that you run against the zone. Well, I just go on Synergy and look at the offense that you play. You know, it's crazy because, you know, we are taking that personal factor out of it, but it's a very strange times that we live in.
That's such a great observation. So well articulated as well. Something that I think that maybe some of the older coaches feel, but you know, we've never really articulated exactly like you have there. A classic example to me of that is like what you just described there about going and seeing people, you know, in practice or in games. I say this to younger coaches when they're talking about scouting and scouting on video. Listen, don't watch Synergy, you know, first. Watch a game first, a whole game, because there's no context for that play. When you see the play, it's the point guard already has the ball in his hands, or he's making the initial pass. There's no context to how that came about. You don't know whether that's in the flow. You don't know whether that's come out of a timeout. So and back then, you know, we had to do a lot more, like you say, actually on going there, writing our notes of games. That's a really interesting observation.
Yeah. Funny enough, I think you actually made a comment to me once. I think you were coaching at Worcester, you know, and Worcester's only 2.5 hours away from us, and they play on a Friday night. So we'd train at you know, an afternoon, 12 or 1 o'clock on a Friday, and I would go to games, and I don't think there's any substitute for it, like you're saying. You know, I'd see Rob at Leicester. I'd go down there every Friday or Saturday night. If I wasn't coaching, if I didn't have a game, I didn't see why I shouldn't be at another game, learning about team. If I don't play them for a couple of weeks, I get to know why he's calling a timeout, and I try and sit. You know, this might be a little bit naughty. I try and sit as close to the bench as possible.
No, absolutely.
You know, see how teams are reacting, seeing, you know, why they're doing certain things at certain times. I'd done it to Rob at Leicester once, actually. Well, they were playing Worcester, and Worcester had sold out, and they had like the pull-out chairs right. I was front row right behind Rob's bet timeout, so I was just trying to listen as much as I possibly could. But no, I agree completely. You get to see a lot more in person watching full games. How the bench acts when the camera's down on the other end of the floor and all that sort of stuff. Like, massively important.
And just two quick stories on that. The first is if anyone listens to the excellent Mark Woods MVP cast with Nick Nurse, Nick tells that exact same story, that he used to drive to London Towers to watch Kevin Cadle coach. And you know, I myself was going to see Chris Finch and Nick at Manchester. I would do that every single week, and more importantly, when I was at Everton, I'd be one of the almost always in the bleachers at Northgate Arena when Chester were playing, and I wasn't at Everton. So you just get a really good feel for a team and the way that the coach is coaching in certain areas. So that's great. Do you have any, you know, kind of coaches that you gravitate to, not like Coach Mike Burton and some of the people that are within your own sphere, but you know, do you exchange ideas with any other of the coaches in the BBL, or what do you feel about that situation, about the fraternity as a whole?
There's only one coach that I probably speak to more than others. You know, when you go to arenas and you know, you get a 5-minute, 10-minute chat with the coaches, and you know, we all share that sort of, you know, that little bit of time with each other and talk. But there's one coach there, Manchester Giants, Danny Byrne. Me and him sort of came into the league at the same time, so we sort of have that in common. You know, only 40 minutes apart, so we chat a little bit. I wouldn't really say we chat about too many ideas. You know, we'll talk about opposition sometimes, but you know, that's just sort of like that friendly face sort of thing. And you know, we do speak, but yeah, that's probably the only person I really speak to away from the court often. I would like to speak to more people. You know, I always think that we should have, you know, more chats like this. You know, lockdown was amazing. It did teach us how to all use Zoom, and you know, what a great facility it is. Like, there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing it more, but unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to happen.
Now, Coach, end of game questions. So 4 rapid fire questions, and these ones are always a little bit tougher. So, favorite player to coach?
Okay, I've obviously been thinking about this one. In terms of favorite player, I've got 2 that I have to say. Lewis Sayers, who's now at Newcastle, is one of the most professional people that you'll ever come across. He just turns up day in, day out, gives you the same, whether he's having a great shooting day, bad shooting day, made mistakes, you just know what you're going to get with him. You know, so consistent in his work ethic and those sort of things, I just think was a huge benefit. And you know, I'm glad to see him in Newcastle. I think that's a great opportunity for him to do really well. You know, against some really experienced players like Fletch and Darius Defoe and those sort of guys. You know, I think that's a great opportunity for him. So I'm super happy. But also, I've got to put Parker Jackson Cartwright in there. You know, we took a sort of a calculated risk on bringing him in after he'd had a fractured tibia the year before, and you know, it just paid off. Like, he was absolutely unbelievable. You know, he missed one game last year because he had tonsillitis against London Lions, and we missed him so much that game. He was just like the heart and soul of the team. Could change a game on his own. So good, so professional. Never any attitude. Just knew what to do at the right time. And yeah, them 2 guys are standout guys for me.
Awesome. I'm putting these in different order. Favorite drill that you run?
I think I mentioned it before. I like the 3-on-3 closeout drill where the defenders start on the baseline. It's you know, you're putting the defenders at a disadvantage straight away, and it's what happens in games all the time. You know, offense is there to try and create advantages for the offense. And as a defensive team, you have to make the most of those situations, and you know, it's great.
And just describe that really quickly. I think in my mind, I think I have an idea of how it works, but
yeah. So you got 2 guys, one on each wing, and then there's an offensive guy at the top as well. 3 guys on the baseline facing those 3 guys. Ball starts in one corner, pass it out the top. The ball has to swing through all offensive guys, but the guy who started in the opposite corner runs cross court, and he's on straight into a closeout. The middle defending guy at the baseline, he's going straight to the top, and the guy on the opposite wing on the baseline, he's going to be the help side.
Yeah.
And you know, you're just creating an advantage straight away. Talking about closeouts, which is a huge part of the game, and staying on the floor, contesting shots, that type of thing, where we're going to force the offensive players. So yeah, that for me is up there.
Great
and then
stuff.
there's one other drill as well, which Bert got from Kevin Cadle. You can play it 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, and it's no dribble. You got to make 10 passes before you can look to score. And it's just about defensive intensity. We reward the defense. If they knock the ball out of bounds or backcourt, defense get the ball, and they get to become the offensive team. Yeah, those are 2 of my favorites to run.
Awesome. Favorite all-time basketball coach?
I think there's a common theme with this one. I think you get the same name every time, and it's no different for me. Greg Popovich in the NBA with the Spurs. I just think, you know, when you watch the Spurs, I think back in the day of, like, you know, Duncan, Parker and Ginobili, like how they moved the ball. And, you know, he started this whole 6th man thing with Ginobili, bringing him off the bench. Could have been a starter in more or less any team in the NBA. Just team first sort of mentality, great movement offensively. You know, that to me is a standout coach.
Awesome. And then favorite go-to saying or statement?
I don't know. This one's a little bit tricky for me because I have a favorite saying myself. I've got it on a print downstairs. My most common saying is, "It is what it is." You know, I just like that one. You know, sometimes you just can't change certain things. You know, if you get a call that you don't agree with, it is what it is. You just got to move on. If something happens, if you get an injury and you know it's devastating for the team, it is what it is. You just got to move on. But my favourite saying, and I've used it a few times, used it in the cup final, is a saying by Billie Jean King, and it's "Pressure is a privilege." I think it's, you know, you can interpret it in many ways. The way I interpret it is, you know, yeah, we're under pressure. We're under pressure to perform. But that's a privilege. You know, you've got to look at it. You know, you can't think of pressure as a negative. That, you know, you can't start shying away from pressure. the amount of people that would love to be in that position, to have that pressure on them, you've just got to see it as a privilege.
Coach, again, I would like to really thank you for being on this Timeout Coaching podcast. I want to wish you all of the success in this season, as crazy as the start has been. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, learn so much about you and your philosophy, and some of the some really great observations there. So thank you very much indeed from myself.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me. Like I said at the start, I think it's great what you're doing. I'm hearing stories from people that I don't know, like Mark Dunning. I know of him, but I never knew this until you start bringing this to all our attention. And, it's great. And, long may it continue. And let's hope that we do inspire that younger generation, like you said at the start.
Appreciate that, Coach. Thank you.